Peaceful as it appears, Moldova sits right next door to Ukraine and a searing, devastating conflict with no end in sight. Since February last year, the country of just 2.5 million has been under a state of emergency, wary that the fighting might spread to its own territory, by accident or design. For now, the EU's border agency Frontex offers a symbolic show of outside support. Moldova is hoping for much more. This is the border crossing point from Moldova into Ukraine. The nearest fighting at the current moment between Ukraine and Russia is roughly 100 kilometers away. The big question that dominates here is whether Moldova is Mr. Putin's next target. Conflict Zone has come here to gauge the level of concern. In the southeast of the country, Moldova shares a 200-kilometer stretch of the Dniester River with Ukraine, the waterway no longer just a border, but a dividing line between war and peace. Russian missiles targeting Ukraine have flown over Moldova, but today's border patrols are watching more for smugglers and people traffickers. All the same, the border police say they're ready to fight for their country, whoever threatens them, however large the force, and for as long as it takes. You're living next door to a huge war zone. Do you think you'll ever see peace in this region again in your lifetime?
I hope so.
But you're not sure?
I think at this stage no one can be sure of that. But I think everyone wants to see peace. Especially given the fact that, as many others, I'm a parent, and the last thing I want that my child sees war, especially close to home. So I hope that soon there will be peace.
So far, the threat to Moldova has appeared not from outside, but in anti-government demonstrations in the capital, Chisinau. Alongside them, a constant stream of cyber attacks, disinformation and bomb hoaxes that have rattled the authorities and put them on the defensive. Russia's hand, they say, is behind it all. What would need to happen for Russia to decide that they're coming across your border in force and will take control here in Moldova?
Moldova's decision to walk along the European values path and be a member of a democratic and free world, that's exactly already the reason why Russia is so aggressive here in this region. And they can, for now, do it if they manage to change the government by radicalizing the population. That would mean that they can put various scenarios in motion. That would mean that they can provoke Ukraine, including in opening the third front. That would mean that they could access the Black Sea through Danube and influence, including the trade, have different, quite advantageous military positions. That means proximity with NATO troops and much, much, much more. That gives an extra power in negotiations with Brussels. And when I say Brussels, I mean all the capital of Europe. That means regaining control. And they don't need extra reason.
That may be true, but for President Maia Sandu, in office since 2020, the prospect of direct Russian intervention has already come too close for comfort. Earlier this year, you accused the Russians of attempting a coup d'etat against your government. How close did you come to being toppled?
We are much stronger this year than last year, for instance, when the war in Ukraine started. Our institutions are much stronger, and we have proof that our institutions have been able to prevent Russia from implementing its scenario. It doesn't mean that these attempts will not continue.
But how close did it come to actually ousting you?
The institutions were strong enough, and Russia's plan proved to be not realistic enough, because Russia believed that we were weaker because that's what Russia wants Moldova to be, wants to be a weak institution, or a weak state with weak institutions. We were close, but our institutions managed to prevent this scenario.
How
and
close?
We have
just,
to stay,
just hours away?
Well, I'm not sure hours away, but weeks in which Russia was planning to undertake these attempts of overthrowing the government together with the criminal groups, together with the corruption groups led by some Moldovans. But again, thanks to the fact that we knew about these plans, and thanks to the fact that our institutions managed to react quickly and they were vigilant enough, this hasn't happened.
Do you feel personally under threat from Russia?
There are risks when you come to a position like being the president of a country. But
are there risks directed at you?
From
Russia?
I do feel safe because I have a team here which protects me.
You have talked about the hybrid warfare. Moscow has apparently distributed large sums of money to oligarchs in Moldova, essentially to cause trouble. You would seem to have very powerful enemies here. Do you know who they all are? Are we talking about a fifth column against you in this country?
It's a combination. We have politicians and people who have been receiving money from Russia for years to undermine our efforts to build a strong state here in the Republic of Moldova. More recently, some of the corrupt groups, which before didn't have a geopolitical color, now joined Russia in its attempts to destabilize the country, because the interest of the corrupt groups are to keep Moldova in the gray area, to have weak institutions so that they could continue to steal, and they would not be put in prison, they would not respond for the abuses that they've committed in the past. So you have a combination of efforts now of those people who have been working for Russia for many years, who have been paid by Russia to work against the Moldovan state, and now the corrupt groups which suddenly realized that they share the same objective with Russia, to make this country weak and to benefit.
Which you showed towards the Ukrainian refugees, resilience, which you showed to Russia's blackmail, and unity, which you showed to link your destiny to the European Union. It was very moving to see a sea of European flags here in Chisinau streets last week. And my message to the people of Moldova is that we stand by you. We support you every step of the way on your path to the European Union. And today I'm glad to announce a new support package for Moldova with a double objective. We want to support you to address the impact of the war on your doorstep, and we want to bring you closer to the European Union.
You said recently, we believe we can save our democracy only as part of the EU. Is your democracy that fragile?
The current geopolitical situation shows to us that Russia will continue to be a big source of instability for years to come. And Russia has been posing threats to our democracy. And that's why we believe that our democracy will be safer within the EU. We value democracy. We've been fighting hard to protect our democratic institutions and processes, and especially to consolidate them. But we see that external challenges can have significant implications, especially on a small country like Moldova.
You comforted by the fact that so many European leaders decided to come here?
We honor it, and we see this as a strong signal of support.
And you want more than a strong signal of support, you want more than moral support, don't you? You want actual support.
We have been benefiting from support. We're
They're
very
not
grateful.
promising you anything, though.
We have the candidate status now, and this is extremely important to us. To us, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. We have been benefiting from support now that we had to deal with the energy crisis, with the economic implications of the war in Ukraine, with the refugee crisis. Yes, we do need support, but we have strong determination here inside the country to make the EU integration possible.
And prevent you becoming Putin's next target?
We do need to be part of the EU family to feel safer.
Are you afraid of being his next target?
We do see what Russia is doing to Ukraine, and there are reasons to be concerned, of course.
You've suggested Moldova might become a full member of the EU by 2030, but you could well be out of power by then. Your party has been polling in the low 20s for some of this year. Isn't that a worry? Wouldn't that be a huge stumbling block to the EU if you got voted out of office?
We made a commitment to be ready by 2030 for the EU membership, and we showed on May 21st a few days ago that there is popular support when the citizens of Moldova came to Chisinau, came into the street. We have the polling, we have the polls which show that more than 60% of Moldovans support the EU accession plan, and we will continue to work to make sure that the Russian propaganda and its disinformation does not reduce the popular support for the EU integration. But this is an objective which is supported by the majority of people.
Смотря какой бизнес. Это все зависит от товара. Сейчас в последнее время очень ухудшился.
Много людей, которые не могут позволить себе вот такие продукты сейчас.
Безусловно.
Кто виноват?
В чем именно?
За цены.
Цены?
Высокие цены.
Ну это же все, это мировой кризис.
Да. Война в Украине.
Россия?
Россия виновата.
Виновата Россия, конечно. Она источник всех бед. Вот и все. Если бы она, как вам сказать, мировой преступник, это, ну как сказать, человека